Yeshua. Praise Yeshua. Thank Yeshua for everybody that's here today. And those that joins us in the by video later on. We're thankful. We're going to talk, and I'm going to continue on in Ephesians where I was last week, but I want to talk about I know to some people, because I'm so frank about what I say in a lot of ways, that people get the idea that I'm angry or I don't love others, like I ought to love. I'm not showing the love that I ought to show, the love of God, But, there's not a one that believes in the Messiah, whether they call him Jesus or whether they call him Yeshua. There's not a one that doesn't tell you that his coming is soon, that we need to be prepared, and because it could be, the Christian world especially preaches it could be any day. A lot of your messianics want to go with prophetic things, that it's 2016, 2017, blah, blah, blah. And but every one of them is saying, be prepared, because the coming of the Messiah is coming, and it's close. And if that be the truth, in which it can very well be true, or you can go back and say every generation has taught that from the time this gospel was preached up until now. About every generation is saying the coming of the Messiah is at hand. Even Paul, when he spoke, he thought that that he might possibly be alive and remain. I mean, in Thessalonians he talks about that. We that are alive and remain shall be caught up together to be with him. And so it's being taught. And I personally, because Yeshua ain't showed me nothing about his coming, that he's going to be coming anytime soon. And I personally think that this world's going to get in a whole lot worse condition than it is now before he comes. Number one is because his children, they're talking about his coming, but ain't none of them hollering, really wanting him to come.
Even so,
how many times do I hear people say, yeah, I'm ready to go, but I don't want to catch the next bus. When this world gets bad enough, and when the time is for Yeshua to come, they're going to be ready. Those that are his anyway are going to be ready for the next bus. In other words, they're going to be calling for him to come. And this world ain't got in that shape yet. As bad as it is, it ain't in that shape yet. But anyway, with everybody trying to teach that he's coming, and his coming is soon, which I said might be, might not be. If they really believe that, they would be looking and making sure, without a doubt, that they are ready to meet him when he comes. But yet, and I don't know if I'm saying this right or getting it across right, but anyway, what I'm getting at anyway, but yet everybody in his own mind is right. The Christian world.
Imagination.
The Christian world, yeah. The Christian world, And every denomination, they're at odds with one another, but every one of them is right. They're a Baptist because they don't believe what the Pentecostal teaches. They're Pentecostal because they don't believe what the Baptist and Methodist and so on, and Catholic and so on. They don't believe what the other one teaches, but everybody in their own mind is right. Messianics, they don't teach same thing as the Christians do. Matter of fact, they're all against a lot of the things that the Christian churches teach. And they're right. Everybody in his own mind is right. But every one of them, there's three that refers to as being God's children. Well, I know Muslims claim to be God's children too, but anyway, the three that I'm referring to is Christianity, Messianic or Hebrew roots, and Judaism. They all agree more or less in the same God. But every one of them, when you listen to them and you pay attention, and especially being a child of God, if you are a child of God, you see the false teaching of each one of them. And ladies and gentlemen, if it's false teaching in them, they're wrong. I know a lot of people want to look and say, well, Brother George, why are you right? And I have to make the confession is because I'm called of Him to do what I'm doing. I haven't decided in my own mind what is right, and then I'll go out and teaching what is right. I teach the gospel. I preach the gospel. I teach faith in Him, not in what I do or what anyone else does, or that I can do anything I want to once I put my faith in Him, and I can go out and do what I want to and still be a child of God. I don't teach none of that. I don't teach the laws of Moses, which Judaism, but in actuality, each one of them is teaching according to their own imaginations and their own traditions. Whether it's Judaism, whether it's Christianity, or whether it's Hebrew roots or Messianic, whichever way you want to refer to that, they're all teaching according to their own imaginations and according to their traditions of other men and what other men have taught. And I don't agree with none of them, and I don't teach what they teach, and so therefore a lot of times I am scorned, or I'm considered a heretic or whatever, and so they don't even listen to me to start with, and that is all right, because that's what God said would happen. You'd be separated from everything else. But anyway, trying to get into where I'm at here in Ephesians, as we talked last week about here in Ephesians first chapter, how that the Messiah, how that we are chosen in the Messiah. Those that are His are chosen in Him long before we were ever born. Well, we was chosen in Him before the creation of the world, actually. To go on from that, I'm trying to teach the gospel of the Messiah, and that it's not of works, which the Old Covenant and the Mosaic Law, that's what it contained. That's what it was. That's what it was all about, was man's works to keep him, in order that would keep him until the Messiah could come. And when the Messiah come, all of that changed. Well, people say, well, God never changes. Well, that's true. God doesn't change. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. But the thing about that is that this has been in his mind from the beginning of creation. This is how it would be. It would first be the way it was in creation. It would then be the way it was under the Mosaic law. And then it would be the Messiah coming and delivering everyone unto him, where that man could be made righteous. Man is never made righteous by anything he does. Even though he says, because Messiah came, I can do this. No, that's not. That's not. Because Messiah come, I can keep the law. That's not why Messiah come. Messiah come so you didn't have to keep the law. Because his Spirit in those that are his fulfills the righteousness of that law. Not you, nor your ability to do so. He does it. His Spirit does it. And but anyway, and that's what Paul is trying to say here to the Ephesians, and and just about in every letter to every assembly or even to individual. That's what Paul and all the other apostles was trying to get across to the people, that in the gospel, Yeshua, Messiah, came, and now we are complete in him. Not in what we do because of him, but we are complete in him. Or what we can do because of him. But we are complete in him. Our faith in him makes us complete. And through that, our faith in him, the righteousness of the law is fulfilled in him. And we're going to show you that, hopefully, here in this very chapter, the second chapter of Ephesians. Here, I'm going to show you that, and it's, whether you see it in it or not, it's plainly said there that he is the end. That he abolished these things. But yet man keeps us saying that they're there and we can keep them because Yeshua come. No, we observe, or we keep them through him. Not because he came that we can keep them. We keep them through him. That's where our faith in him counts. Not what I do. Even down to the feast that's been happening since last weekend, or actually last week. The weekend was those who went by the sliver of the moon. The others that went by the conjunction actually done it. I think Wednesday week started it. Now I think tomorrow at midnight begins, if I'm not mistaken, tomorrow at midnight or somewhere along there, begins, midnight, I'm sorry, tomorrow at sundown, begins the Day of Atonement, and then another 5 days begins Feast of Tabernacles. That, we're commanded, the one of they two of them anyway, Judaism and Hebrew Messianic teaches we're commanded to keep them, and that's a false teaching. We are not under the new covenant commanded to keep them. And anyone that teaches that is teaching a false doctrine. And I don't want to agree with them, or I won't agree with them, nor will I do it I don't want to use the word protest to show that I'm not doing it, but but I don't do it in the way they do it in a protest to show that I am not commanded to do that. Anytime, they say we are commanded by Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. We're commanded to do these things. And I know I meant to go on into the chapter here, but I didn't get to. We're commanded by the 23rd chapter of Leviticus to do these feasts. Anybody at any time can show me or can prove to me that they can do it the way Yahweh said do it, then I'll believe that. But until they can, and I guarantee you even now, I guarantee you they can't do it. They can't prove to me or nobody else that we can do it the way Yahweh said do it. We can't do it. And if we can't do it, then we must not be commanded to do it, because we're not to change it. We're not to add to it, or we're not to take away from anything that God commanded man to do. We're not to add to it, we're not to take away from it. Let me say that again. So if you prove to me, show me how I can do it exactly the way God said do it, then I'll agree with you. But until you do, I'll tell you and anyone else that you're doing what you're doing by your own imaginations or the imaginations of others that have taught you. Our faith is in the Messiah, and we are to teach that faith in Him, that all things are fulfilled in Him, or through Him. Any way you want to put that, all things are fulfilled by Him, or through Him, or in Him. And that leaves me, you, and anybody else out. But our faith is in Him. But anyway, let me go. I didn't figure I'd be too long today. But let me go into this. And I want you to listen to what Paul is saying, because he says a whole lot. A lot of times you can read through this chapter and you can only pick up you pick up a thing or two, or somebody preaches on a thing or two, but that's it. But Paul's got a lot to say in this chapter, and listen to what he's saying. And I'm gonna bring each one of them. I'll bring them out, or try to, as I read it. But let me read it here. It says, "And you," and the King James Version adds some words there. It says, "hath he quickened," but the original text says, "And you who were dead in trespasses and sins," he's talking to a Gentile church here, or a Gentile assembly, and he's referring to the Gentile people, as you'll see over on into the chapter. It says, "And ye who were dead in trespasses and sin, were in time past, you walked according to the course of the world, according to the prince of the power of the air, the spirit that now worketh in the children of disobedience." You, in time past, this is how you walked. Why? Because you did not have the promise of the Father that He gave to the children of Israel. The only way, and I'll get to that here in a minute, I'm just going to say it in passing now, but I'll get to it here in a minute. The only way that a Gentile could enter in with or be proselyted in, as they referred to it, to be proselyted into the Israel, was that they had to agree to follow all the laws, and we're referring to at that time the Mosaic law and the commandments of God, and to be physically circumcised. The foreskin of all males was to be removed. And that's the only way that you could be a part of that house of Israel and participate in the feasts and other things that was done by the house of Israel. That was the only way you could do it. See, among whom also we all had our conversation in time past in the lusts of our flesh, fulfilling the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature the children of wrath, even as others. And now he's talking to the assembly there at Ephesians, reminding them at one time this is how you was. You were just of the world out here, doing everything it done, and playing everything it played with. And that's what he's saying. That's what he's reminding them of. But it says, but God, who is rich in mercy, for his great love wherewith he loved us, and including, and now Paul is, of course, he's Israel. He's part of Israel. He's of the tribe of Benjamin, so he was part of Israel. So, but he's including himself now with the Gentiles. Why? Because we're all made one in the Messiah. Love wherewith he loved us, even when we were dead in sins. And we can go back to where, why we were yet in sins. Messiah loved us and gave his life for us. Even when we were dead in sins, hath quickened us, or given us life, together with Messiah. By grace you are saved. And hath raised us, or raised up together, and made sit together in heavenlies in Messiah Yeshua. Everybody now. Everybody, include Gentile and Jew, or Israel and Gentile. That in the ages to come he might show the exceeding riches of his grace in kindness toward us through Messiah Yeshua. And it says, for by grace are you saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, the gift of God, not of works, lest any man should boast. And to be honest, when man tries to teach you that, because of the Messiah I can now keep the law, that's in the first place, he has stated it wrong. And in the second place, he's just boasting within himself. I can do something now. But that's not the way it is. We can't keep the law because Yeshua come. We are made righteous. The righteousness of the law is fulfilled in us by the Messiah. Not to our working of it, but it's fulfilled in us by the Messiah. For we are his workmanship, created in Messiah Yeshua unto good works, which God hath before ordained that we should walk in them. And I could take the next hour just on trying to tell people what the good works is. It's not but I'll sum it up in just a few words. It's not practicing or observing the Mosaic law. That's not your good works. Your good works, if you know the Scriptures and you understand the Scriptures, your good works is the manifestation of the fruit of the Spirit. That's your good work. And the Bible backs you, Scriptures backs that up. If you want to look up for a while and study on good works, every one of them, everything that it talks about the good works, it's not referring to the practice of the law, but it's showing your kindness, it's showing your love, your forbearance, your and what I'm reading there, or what I'm quoting there, is of course the manifestation of the fruit of the Spirit. That's what our works will manifest. That is what our works would be. So I'm summing that up in a few words. I could talk on that a long time. Ordained that we should walk in them. What? In the fruit of the Spirit, and the manifestation of the fruit of the Spirit, and those things are what we walk in: love, joy, peace, kindness. I done quoted some of them. Now, this is what most people want to get out of this book and this chapter, is reminding them that at one time they were Gentiles. Wherefore remember that ye in time past Gentiles in the flesh, who are called uncircumcision by that which is called the circumcision in the flesh, made by hands, that at the time ye were without Messiah, being aliens from the commonwealth of Israel, and strangers from the covenants of the promise, having no hope and without God in the world. Reminded them that they had no hope, that before the Messiah you were strangers as nations, as different nations. You were without hope. You were not included in the covenant that the Messiah made with the house of Israel. Now, like I said, individuals could join in the group so long as they subscribed to the laws and were circumcised. You know, I don't know, I guess I know some Hebrew roots teachers and Messianic teachers. I know some personally teach that, you know, if you become a child of God, you will be circumcised. And I'm talking about fleshly, carnally circumcised, and which that is a complete, utter lie. To become a child of God, that's what, you know, you will do. That is a complete and utter lie. But many subscribe to that and agree to that, and listen to the man that I know of at least one teacher that's big in Hebrew roots and Messianic teaching that teaches that very thing. Now, he doesn't bring it out too often, because if he brought it out too often, a lot of people may catch on what he's saying. But he does teach it. But anyway, but let's also look at it this way: if we are to fulfill or practice the law of Moses, and I'm saying it that way so that people will know what I'm talking about, or if we are to subscribe to the old covenant, which included the law of Moses, then why are we not actually required to do the very thing that was impossible to do and become a part of unless you did it? You could not participate in the feasts. You could not observe none of the holy days. You weren't allowed to observe them with the children of Israel unless you were circumcised. Now, if I'm still commanded to do those things, then why ain't I commanded to be circumcised in order to do those things? You better think about what you're trying to teach other people. Why ain't I? The very thing God himself said had to happen. Well, we're spiritually circumcised now. It's a circumcision of the heart. Okay, I'll agree with that, and I'll go along with that. But if I'm doing the rest of the law of Moses, and I'm expected to do the rest of the law of Moses, why ain't I expected to do that? You know, it don't make sense. If people would just stop and think, use their mind to call upon the Messiah for the knowledge and the wisdom of the Word, instead of using their minds to imagine things that's not in the Scriptures to start with, and to expect others to do them or to agree with you. I know most people don't agree with me, but that God said it. God said they wouldn't. Anyway, having no hope and without God in the world, to bring you back where I was talking. But now in the Messiah Yeshua, ye who sometimes were far off are made nigh by the blood of the Messiah. Not by any works that I do, not by observing the law of Moses, not by doing all of these things because he come. I am brought nigh unto him by his blood that he shed for me and all. For he is our peace, not what I'm able to do because he came. He is our peace because he came. Who hath made both one, the Jew and the Gentile. He's made them one. They were two, separate, but he's made them one. And hath broken down the middle wall of petition. And this is where I was talking about earlier, before I started reading. And having abolished in his flesh the enmity, I can never say that word, enmity, the law of commandments and ordinances, for to make in himself of twain two one new man, so making peace. And that he might reconcile both unto God in one body by the cross, having slain the enmity thereby. And I go back to that 15th verse there, and it's plainly, if you will listen to what it's saying and understand by the Spirit what it's saying, he is saying plainly, I have abolished the commandments. Now, once again, you know, I talked about law being generally used. A lot of commandments are generally used too. But they were under the law of Moses. You were commanded to do these things, though. You were commanded under the law. There was ordinances, certain things that you had to do that was required by all to do it. And they were commandments under that law, and under that covenant, they were commanded to do. But Yeshua abolished those commandments of ordinances, those things that were carnally or fleshly required for man to do. You know, if you were to give God a praise, you were commanded to bring an offering not only a meat offering or food offering and a wine and oil offering, but you were required to bring a sacrifice to do it, to make a praise, just to praise, give a praise to Yahweh. That was a commandment that was made. That was one of the commandments. That was one of the ordinances that he's referring to here. And I'm just naming one there. Well, not only that, the children of Israel were commanded in Leviticus 23 to observe those days, those feast days, those holy days. They were commanded to do it, and they had to do it when they came into the land. When they received that promise that God gave to Abraham, when the children of Israel received that promise, then they were commanded to observe these days and these holy days as not only a reminder of what God had done for them, but also a reminder or a foreshadow of what Yeshua was coming to do for them. That covenant and that laws of Moses that was referred to, as we referred to, was all instructional things that instructed them about the coming of the Messiah. Now that Messiah has come, he has fulfilled those things. And now that our faith and now our walk in the Messiah is no longer carnally, but it's spiritually in him. Therefore, excuse me, the things that are fulfilled spiritually through him. The righteousness of the law is fulfilled spiritually through him. And you know, if you could just get people to understand that, then they wouldn't be trying to condemn others because they don't do that. Or they don't, and every one of them has got their own ideals of how it should be done. And even when it should be done. You know, I said earlier that the Feast of Trumpets was observed, on this day, last Saturday, or last Sabbath. It was observed on this day by those who consider the sliver of the moon being the first day of the month. Well, it was, I believe, observed on either Wednesday or Thursday, I'm not sure which day of week before last, for those who consider the moon conjunction as the first day of the month. They can't even agree together on what it is. But yet every one of them, and if they would just stop and think, one or the other of them was breaking a commandment of God of not to do any work on the Sabbath. Because if the conjunction was right, then those who believe in the sliver was breaking the commandment of working and doing all their things on the Sabbath. Those that believed in the conjunction, but those that believed in the sliver, the ones that believed in the conjunctions got a pass this year because it was on the Sabbath anyway. So, but normally it ain't that way. But those that believes in the conjunction, if the sliver had been on a Sabbath night instead of Friday night, if it had been on Sabbath night, then when they went about their thing, doing their thing on Sunday, the ones in the conjunction, they would have been breaking the Sabbath. One or the other is breaking the commandment of the Sabbath that was commanded at that time to do. Sometimes it just don't make sense. but yet in their own mind they make all kinds of sense. But anyway, the scriptures here are plainly saying those things have been abolished. Even the 10 Commandments that they had to physically, if you would, carnally, fleshly, observe those, and seeing that they done it, and even had to do things to remind them of the commandments, such as the phylacteries on their wrist and on their around their hand, the commandments written on the doorpost of their homes, the tassels, the tzitzits. They had to do those things to be reminded of it, because they were doing them carnally, fleshly. But now and they were in actuality written upon carnal stones, tablets of stone, and placed in the earthly holiest of holies, or earthly ark of the covenant were placed in there, physically, carnally, in that thing. But today, our covenant with the Messiah is through Him, and spiritually through Him. They're the same commandments, but they are not applied the same way. They applied spiritually upon the hearts and minds of the children of God. So, even they have changed in that way, even though God never changed it. Well, God didn't change, because that's been in His mind to do that ever since the foundation of the world. He's still the same, yesterday, today, and forever, and He will always do it His way, not man's way. But anyway, that he might reconcile both unto God in one body by the cross, having slain the enemy, or the enmity, the difference between them, and came and preached peace to you which were far off, and to them that were nigh. He preached it to both Jew and Gentile. In God, who created all things by Yeshua Messiah, to the intent that now unto the principalities and powers in heavenlies might be known by the assembly the manifold wisdom of God. Now it's fixing to tell you now that those things that we have today were actually hidden from the children prior to the new covenant. Prior to the new covenant, about Yeshua and what He was doing and what He did. They couldn't have taught it, not all of it. They couldn't have preached all of it. They couldn't have preached everything, because they didn't know it. Do you know something? Just to say this, to let you know, did you know Abraham? He was a child of God. He was called of God. He believed in God. His faith was in God. And he obeyed God. The scriptures teaches us he obeyed God. But did you know he didn't know it was a sin to lie? Oh no! Abraham, he was chosen of God. He's God's man. He didn't know it was a sin to lie. Either that or he disobeyed God. Because when he came into the land there, and he was afraid that they would kill him in order to have take Sarah, he told Sarah, said, you tell them that I'm your sister. Well, that's not really a lie, but he deceived, and the scripture says that you're not to deceive thy brother. Isaac done the same thing. Isaac didn't know it was a sin to lie. Abraham didn't teach Isaac it was a sin to lie. Doesn't even nature teach you that? The Scripture teaches you that. I mean, even nature teaches that you're not to deceive, but Abraham didn't know that it was a commandment of God, thou shalt not bear false witness. Because he bared false witness. Because he deceived. Okay, yeah, she was in actuality his sister, or at least his half-sister, but if she was also she was also Abraham's wife. But he wasn't going to let that be known. He was going to deceive him until God interfered with the man that had thoughts of taking Sarah. And the same thing with Isaac. Did you know that in actuality, Joseph didn't know that it would be a sin to actually have sex with Potiphar's wife? But even nature taught that. You know, that you're not to have another man's wife. Even though it is a commandment of God, you can't commit adultery, or you can't lust after, your neighbor's wife or his belongings. The commandments teaches us that. But did you know they didn't know all of that? Why? Because it hadn't been taught. It hadn't been given to them. It wasn't given to them until Yahweh came down on the Mount Sinai there and taught the children of Israel and gave them those commandments. Now, I know a lot of you don't believe that, or a lot of you won't believe that, or whatever, but that's either true or Abraham wasn't totally honest with God. He disobeyed God. Isaac done the same thing. Joseph, you could argue that because it doesn't say, but you know that even nature teaches that you're not to take another man's wife. And he didn't. He was a good man, and he didn't. But he didn't, and because it wasn't right to do that. Even by nature, that wasn't right to do it, and Joseph wasn't going to do it. But of course, we know everything, lied on him and all that, how he got put in prison anyway. But we got to let Yeshua show us things. Pat and I did something this morning that 99% of the Hebrew roots Messianics would have thought we broke the Sabbath this morning, but we didn't. By the thing that we did. But we didn't, according to God and by God's ways. We didn't. And I didn't. And I went ahead and done it because I understood that I wasn't you know what I done, if y'all ain't following me.
You read somewhere.
I read and I flipped the page on the second and went to the third, and I read. Let me go back and get that. And came and preached, and he said that he might reconcile both unto God in one body by the cross, having slain the enmity thereby. Came and preached peace to you which were afar off, and to them that were nigh. For through him, now, even the other made sense because it all goes together, but this makes even more sense. For through him we both have access by one Spirit unto the Father. Through him. And I hear so many people today deny him by saying, Father this, Father that, thank Father this, thank Father that, praise the Father for this, praise the Father for that, praise Yahweh, praise the... God said that we are to praise him through the Son, the Messiah, and by his name. And we do it by one Spirit unto the Father. through Him, through Yeshua, that we are saved and we give praise to the Father through Him, by one Spirit unto the Father. Now therefore you are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of God, and are built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Yeshua Messiah Himself being the chief corner. And if you study with the Spirit, you understand that the prophets taught the children of Israel about the Messiah. And we know that the apostles taught the children of Israel concerning the Messiah. They preached the gospel. But Yeshua, Messiah Himself, is the chief corner, in whom all the building fitly frames together groweth into a holy temple in Yahweh, or in the Master, Yahweh. Through Him, in Him, everything fits together, and it grows into a holy temple in Yahweh, in whom you also are builded together for a habitation of God through the Spirit. We are, as Corinthians teaches us, we are the temple of the Spirit of God. In other words, we are the habitation of the Spirit of God, you and I. And you know, so many today, even in Hebrew roots and Messianic and in Judaism, not so much in Christianity, but those two are looking for the building of the third temple, which, according to the way you read the scriptures and imagine it in your own mind, there could very well be a third physical or carnal temple. Like I said, it's according to how you read it. But there's one thing for sure right now. That third temple is all ready. And it's a spiritual temple that is set up within you and I, or we are that temple that Yeshua makes us through Him for a habitation of Yahweh through the Spirit. We are that temple. We are the temple. And I got news for you. Whether there is another third physical temple or not, I'm not interested in that temple, because to be interested in it, there's a lot to teach it, or looking forward to that temple, and even the sacrifices and everything that goes along with that temple. Ladies and gentlemen, I am not going to deny Yeshua Messiah by looking forward to making and denying what He did for me through that sacrifice that He made for me. I am not denying Him by looking forward to a third physical temple that I can sacrifice animals that never was good enough to take away my sins to Him. Now, like I said before, there may very well be a third temple for the purpose of the Antichrist to set up in, and for Yeshua to show the children of Israel and Judah who He really is. Now, there might very well be, and that's fine and dandy. But if they are, I ain't sacrificing in it. I'm still giving the praise to Yeshua. Now, when He comes back and He sets up something in that order, fine and dandy. He'll instruct me to do it, and I'll be able to do it. and I can do it. But until then, I'm not denying him.
He dwells in us.
Exactly. And I'm not denying that temple,
Amen.
nor the altar that he was sacrificed on, that tree that he was sacrificed on, and that blood that he shed on that tree. I ain't denying that for nobody. And if you don't agree with me and you want to go along with the rest of them, fine and dandy. But I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to deny him. Anyway, I know I sound contentious to some. I know some think I don't love the way I ought to love. But ladies and gentlemen, to be honest with you, if I didn't love you, I would agree with them and just go along with the crowd. But I love the children of God and the people enough that I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to be frank with you, and I'm going to tell you the way that Yeshua gives it to me. And whether I sound contentious or whether I don't sound like I've got enough love that you think I ought to have, or the way, or I don't exhibit it the way that someone thinks I ought to exhibit it, I'm going to exhibit it by telling the truth of the gospel and preaching the gospel, that it is Yeshua the Messiah that we are to put our faith in, and not all these other things, and not claim that because of him we can do those things, or we are to do those things, and we're able to do those things. No, because of him, the righteousness of those things, of the law, is fulfilled in me. Because of him. That's what has happened in me, is the righteousness of those things has been fulfilled by my faith in him.
Yes.
Shalom, peace.